Lebhe gatim bhagavatim pratita satatra nirmukta samasta sanga atmananu bhutya vibhudatrin no admanu bhutya vidudha trilinga pare male brahmani vasudeve lebhe gatim bhagavatim pratita. Christian. Satatra mukta sangha atmanubhutya vidudha trilinga pare male brahmani vasudeve lebhe gatim bhagavatim pratita satatra nirmukta samasta sanga atmanubhutya vidudha trilinga pare male brahmani vasudeve lebhe gatim bhagavatim pratita satatra nirmukta samasta sanga atmanubhutya vidudha trilinga pare male brahmani vasudeve lebhe gatim bhagavatim pratita saha Maharaj Yayati. Tatra, upon doing this, Nirmukta was immediately liberated from Shamashta Sangaha, all contamination, Atma Anubhutya, simply by understanding his constitutional position. Vidudha was cleansed of Trilingaha, the contamination caused by the three modes of material nature. Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, and Tamaguna. Pare unto the transcendence, Amale, without material contact, Brahmani, the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva, Krishna, the Absolute Truth, Bhagavan, Lebhe, achieved, Gatim, the destination, Bhagavatim, as an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pratitaha, famous. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Because King Yayati completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, he was free from all contamination of material modes of nature, of the material modes of nature. Because of his self-realization, he was able to fix his mind upon the transcendence, Param Brahma Vasudeva, and thus he ultimately achieved the position of an associate of the Lord. Purport. The word Vidudha, meaning cleansed, is very significant. Everyone in this material world is contaminated. Karanam gunasangosya. Because we are in a material condition, we are contaminated either by sattva guna, by raja guna, or by tama guna. Even if one becomes a qualified brahmana in the mode of goodness, sattva guna, he is still materially contaminated. One must come to the platform of Suddha Tattva, Suddha Sattva, transcending the sattva guna. Then one is Vidhuta Tringa, cleansed of the contamination caused by the three modes of material nature. This is possible by the mercy of Krishna, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-17. Srimvatan swakata Krishnam punya sravana kirtanam hridam tasto hyabadrani vidhunoti sruhit satam. Quote, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. End of quote. A person trying to be perfectly Krishna conscious by hearing the words of Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita certainly has all the dirty things cleansed from the core of his heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says, Cheto Darpanamarjanam. The process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord washes away the dirty things accumulated in the core of the heart. As soon as one is free from all the dirt of material contamination, as Maharaj Yayati was, one's original position as an associate of the Lord is revealed. This is called Swarupa Siddhi, or personal perfection. Satatra nirmukta shamashta shanga atmanubhutya viduta trilinga pare male brahmani vasudeve leve gatim bhagavatim pratita. Because King Yayati completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, he was free from all contamination of the material modes of nature. Because of his self-realization, he was able to fix his mind upon the transcendence, Parabrahmam Vasudeva, and thus he ultimately achieved the position of an associate of the Lord. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimate Romapada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Desha Tarine. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So, King Yayati attains liberation. So, the narration of the path of perfection of King Yayati is coming to a conclusion. And it was quite an arch. So the depiction is the gradual process that it took King Yayati for being very attached to enjoy in this world to become perfectly situated in self-realization. And the narration was focused on his realization that enjoying the material world, and specifically he was very attached to sensual enjoyment, sexual enjoyment actually. That the arch that he had to go through was that he realized that there was no happiness, that at the end it was an illusory type of happiness. And it came after quite a lot of time doing this. The previous verse was after many, many years of being engaged in these sensual activities, he came to realize. And so there was not much. There was hints in the narration of King Yayati's activities of devotional. It was very clearly explained, though, during the narration, that he was engaged in the process of self-realization. He was engaged in, specifically it was mentioned that he was engaged in the performance of sacrifices for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This narration is, I don't recall being specified, but you can understand that it was during the Tetra Yuga or towards the beginning of Dwarpa Yuga. But, you know, we know that in the age of Tetra Yuga, the process of perfection of the Yuga Dharma was great sacrifices. And you know, this elaborated yagyas, and he was very much engaged in that. He was a religious king. So whatever he was doing in a parallel way with a process of self-realization. And whatever he was doing, although externally appears to be indulging in sense gratification, it was progressive. It was progressive in his consciousness. He was elevating his consciousness. So we start from point A, which is we are pretty much contaminated. Karanan guna sangosya. Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita. The living entity, conditioned in this material world, were completely controlled by the modes of nature. And we controlled by the modes of nature because of the state of the consciousness that we have. There's only two situations in which a living entity finds himself in this material world. Either you're controlled by the modes of nature, Krishna's energy, or you're controlled by Krishna's divine potency. So we are controlled either by Krishna's external energy or by Krishna's internal energy. But the living entity is always controlled. In the conditioned state of the bodily consciousness of life, we're controlled by the modes of nature, that is the manifestation of external energy of the Lord. So how we go from that point to being completely free of the influence of the mode of nature and become liberated, eligible to be liberated, or qualified for perfection, liberation, or obtain perfection. The process is that one has to undergo this gradual system that is given by Krishna. And that process is called Saranagati. Is what is explained in the scripture, and specifically Lord Chaitanya came to teach us this process of Saranagati by his example. That's what our acharyas, tell us. So the process of Saranagati, or the perfection of Saranagati, is that one had full faith. First is one situated in one's constitutional position, which is, and comes from humility. The humility of understanding that we're not competing with Krishna. Rather, we're situated in our relationship with Krishna of eternal service. So with humility, we can understand that Krishna, we have full confidence that Krishna is our protector and our maintainer. And with that, we, in a position of perfect position of Saranagati, we do everything that is favorable to please Krishna and reject anything that is unfavorable. And thus, we give our whole self to Krishna, this Atmanivedana. So, this process of Saranagati is a process that takes us from point A to point B. And that's what is explained in this verse, that because King Yayati came to the complete surrender, so he achieved the perfection of Saranagati. So that is explained that happens in a gradual manner. It goes gradually. And the process of Saranagati is a process that takes into consideration, we discussed this many times, takes into consideration the material connections, or the material attachments and desires that are there in each one of the conditioned souls, and provides a process that purifies, the process of purification of unwanted desires and unwanted attachments. So once become purifies of those misconceptions of and then what we left is with the pure desires and pure attachments, uncontaminated. And so the process of purification is given by what is called, the Yuga Dharma. When one is following this Dharma that is specifically applied to the times and the circumstances that are there, and is given by the scriptures, by the Lord himself, then automatically there is a cleansing process that is happening. And as unwanted things goes away, then the process of surrendering also becomes further and further manifested. So King Yayati came to actually that perfect position of surrender. He came to a position of the perfection of his practice of devotion. So his devotion became exclusive. This Anya Vilasita, or Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti means exclusive. There's no distractions. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he defines this pure devotional service, or pure, this pure state of consciousness, is when the ulterior motivations, this anyavilashita shunyam, the prone to the selfishness and the ulterior desires, they're sunyam, they're gone, devoid. So anyavilashita, then in that position, jnana karma dhyanavritam, that the fruitive mentality and mental speculation, jnana and karma, they're gone, they're non-existent. And then anukulyena Krishna, no? Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. Then one is established in favorable. One is in the position of being completely positive towards Krishna and engage in devotional service like that. So, coming to the position of pure devotional service means that everything else is cleansed. All the unwanted things are cleansed. And Maharaj Yayati came to that through his practices of devotion. And as one becomes cleansed, then naturally, as our consciousness becomes elevated, naturally we're able to see and we're able to actually perceive the illusory pursuance of happiness through sense gratification. That is actually not happiness, but it's the source of all kinds of material, of miseries, in fact. So, at one point it became very clearly to him, due to the process of purification. And at that point, he actually was able to completely give it up. Completely give it up. So now he was perfectly situated. Perfectly situated. And once everything is cleansed, he is established in this position of Vishuddha Sattva, or pure goodness. And the whole narration, the whole process, the whole principle, it was also narrated. Prabhupada also quotes this in the beginning of the 7th chapter. He described the breakdown of how this, from the process of purification, when one comes to purify oneself of all these unwanted things, what happened and what happened and what happened is described in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, Divinity and Divine Service, in which Srila Sutta Goswami explains what is the perfection, what is this perfection of Saranagati. Srila Prabhupada explains that the Bhagavatam starting point is the ending point of the Bhagavad Gita. The ending point of the Bhagavad Gita is Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Saranam Braja, which is Sharanam. Sharanam is the same root word of Saranagati. So Sharanam, that to fully, exclusively, Mam Ekam, Ekam means exclusively, only. So Mam Ekam, you only surrender to me. Krishna says that's his last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. Never mind about all these different things, all these different religious, ethical, moral instructions that have connections to the world, that have to do with the 3 modes of material nature. Never mind about those. just fully surrender to me. So in the perfection of this Saranagata exclusive surrendering, then Krishna provides all protection. Masuchaha, you don't have to worry. So that's the ending point of the Bhagavad Gita, the ending instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. That's a perfection that we look into, to be complete in a position of full surrender to Krishna. And the Bhagavatam starts with that. In the narration, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the sages ask the questions to Sutta Goswami that what is in the age of Kali. Now we know we're in a different age, but the principles remains the same. You still have to go from polluted consciousness to pure consciousness. The process that is recommended is emphasizing in a much more powerful, because time is shorter and the circumstances are quite opposed to self-realization. So you have a shorter duration of life, and you have an environment that is quite unsupportive for self-realization. So you need a much more powerful means for purification. So you get the most powerful means of purification. The sages wanted to know, what is this? What is the process? What is the thing that people in Kali Yuga can do so they can benefit, they can actually be happy, they can be free from the miseries of material existence that are, maximized or expanded in Kali Yuga. So Srila Sutta Goswami explains that then what is this perfection of Saranagati? What is this supreme dharma? This manifestation of religion that is beyond the different dharmas that are given, that are connected to the different material modes of nature. What is this exclusive position? And he explains that this supreme position is loving devotional service to the Lord, to the Supreme Lord, without motivations, and which is uninterrupted. So pure devotional service is the supreme position. And in this session then, Srila Sutta Goswami goes on to say that after explaining that how can we, living in this material world, can actually be situated in this param dharma, or this position of exclusive surrender and devotion to the personality of Godhead. So he basically says that it's possible, it's actually possible to whatever occupation, whatever we do in this world, it is possible to achieve this position. You don't necessarily need to give up your occupations. It is possible that by doing your occupations, you can achieve this supreme position of consciousness. He elaborates in that, Srila Sutta Goswami, and it's within the teachings of our acharyas. Prabhupada, he says that Srila Rupa Goswami gave us a formula. Guru Maharaj yesterday, he said, answering a question, that there's a formula to actually being able to make this possible, to be in the world and be transcendental to the world. To be able to although with an involvement in the material world, be situated in Krishna consciousness. And the formula, obviously, you have to understand how to apply the formula and you have to understand the science. But the formula, Prabhupada said, this formula have two parts. You know, it's the verse, famous verse, Anashaktasha Vishayam Yatartan Upayanyuta. That this is the first part. First, we have Anashaktasha means, Vishaya means that we have to give up the pursuance of sense gratification. Or the pursuance of sense gratification is not the goal, is not the purpose of our actions or our occupation. Rather, the pursuance of that occupation is to do things. No, let me see. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. I'm trying to remember what His Holiness Ramappa Swami was saying. That we have to see things in connection with Krishna. This is what the verse said. So when we do things, we understand that everything is in connection with Krishna. And we have to have, there have to be that connection, we have to have that connection with the purpose of pleasing Krishna with the things that we do. And when we're able to understand that science of that whole consciousness, then that is called Yukta Vairagya. Means that is the recommended renunciation that is going to take us to that position. And Srila Sutta Goswami says something very similar. He say, after saying that it is possible that any of our occupations can take us, or they have the capacity to give us this supreme position of surrender, similar to the one that Yayati obtained. He says that therefore, he says this, Atapumbir Dvija Sheshta Vanashrama Vivagasha Sanustitasha Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. That you define the goal. The goal of my occupation is just to give pleasure to Krishna. And once that's defined, then he says, therefore, with one point in attention, and this is how Prabhupada breaks down, well, Sutta Goswami breaks down, Prabhupada quotes it, in terms of how, we can go from this point A to the final destination, from being materially contaminated to being free from material contamination. So, to be able to do that, to be able to be in the position, one should, Srila Sutta Goswami says, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. So, here's where it lies, the whole thing. To what Yayati was able to achieve with sacrifices, with yagyas. In our times, we have to constantly hear, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of God. But the emphasis in the hearing and chanting, and that's what Srila Sutta Goswami highlights. Prabhupada quotes this verse, Shrimbatan Swakata Krishnan, Punyan Shravana Kirtanan verse, that within the heart, Krishna will cleanse. He cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed an urge to hear his messages. So, that process of cleansing is highlighted here, that one have to develop this urge, this attachment, this affinity for hearing the messages of Krishna. And then the next verse tells how we can actually hear, which is, how's it start? Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. That we hear constantly, in a daily basis, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, and we serve the devotees. We serve the devotees. And so by regular attendance of Bhagavatam, so this is one of the greatest opulences that devotees who live in the temple has. Actually, I would say probably arguably the greatest opulence, that we're able to, in a structured way, listen to Bhagavatam in the association of Shishi Kishore Kishori and Shishi Gauranitai, Shri Jagannath Sri Baladev, Srimati Subhadra Maharani, Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So, and the devotees, is very powerful. It's a great opulence. Regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. So, nashta prayeshva bhadreshu. All those unwanted things are completely destroyed. Bhagavatyuta mashloke. And then devotion gets established as an irrevocable fact. So, Srila Sutta Goswami says that how we get to the position, so the point is that the important aspect that is there is that we gain an affinity for hearing. That we gain an affinity for hearing. And he says, how do we get an affinity for hearing? He says that is by serving the devotees. So by serving the devotees, Shushusho Shadananasya Vasudeva Kataruchi. This Vasudeva Kata means the glories or the talks of Krishna. And Ruchi means a taste. We get an affinity. So how do you get that affinity? Syam Mahat Sevaya Vipra is to serve the devotees. Serve those who are exclusively dedicated to the service of the Lord. Through that service, through that association, we gain the affinity. When we gain the affinity, then Krishna within the heart, he cleanses the unwanted things. When he sees what are the symptoms of someone who gains an affinity, every opportunity you're there, enthusiastically engaging in the process of hearing and chanting. Specifically attending Srimad Bhagavatam and chanting the holy names. Prabhupada quotes also Lord Chaitanya, who gave us the Harinam Sankirtan, the Yuga Dharma, the process of chanting Hare Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya tells us that we need to develop that attraction. And how we develop the attraction? Well, we have to cultivate. We have to, the positive things. There's the purification that is happening by chanting the holy name, the Cheto Darpana Marchanam process. But it's also the cultivation of qualities, positive qualities, that allows to gain that attraction for chanting the holy name. Humility, tolerance, respect, and curbing our false ego. So by doing that, by attending the Srimad Bhagavatam, by worshipping the deities, by hearing, by associating, by serving the devotees, then we gain this affinity. By gaining the affinity, we become purified to the point that it's almost finished. So the narration goes of Srila Sutta Goswami that as soon, so when loving devotional service becomes a fact, an irrevocable fact. So then he say, as soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of the nature's modes of passion, and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and becomes completely happiness. That's when we achieve this unalloyed goodness, which is called Suddha Sattva. You're able to overcome the modes of nature. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, that when one comes to that unfailing devotional service or ananya bhakti, then one transcends the modes of nature and one comes to the level of Brahman. Man chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate verse. Sagunan samatitya itam Brahma bhujaya kalpate. That, so one comes to the position of Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta means that you start to experience the happiness of the soul. You experience the reality of being a soul. And then when achieve happiness, it's the happiness of the soul when start to experience that. And then Srila Sutta Goswami goes and said, thus establishing the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by the contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. So now it's all clear. It's clear. And therefore, renunciation becomes just a natural thing. Why would you want to do something like, it doesn't, now it's all clear. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The change of fruitive action is terminated when one sees the self as master. Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, with great delight, because such devotional service is enlivening to the self. So, that is how scientifically we go from being conditioned in this world to being fully, perfectly situated in self-realization. Any comments or questions? Yeah, Giridhari, bro.
Maybe it's a question, but kind of comment question. I find it interesting in the Kali Yuga. It's like we hear these stories that these devotees were enjoying, but also making gradual advancement, so they were able to enjoy for thousands of years. But it doesn't seem like we have that option.
Right.
Though for sure not 1,000 years, but even any really enjoyment. We don't really have any time in Kali Yuga, really. I don't know, maybe that's just, maybe some people are enjoying somewhere, like in Florida or something, but in Chicago there's not much time. It's cold and we only live for so long, and there's to make a living in this at this time. It's so you have to work, most of the day, and it's like it just seems like almost unrelatable, these stories of these devotees living so long and getting purified through this process. Whereas we don't really have that option. We're like Sankirtan, just like surrender to the system. Don't like waste any time. Like that's kind of a comment question.
Yeah. Well, in one sense, we do have tons of sensual engagement, but they're purifying. Because we party a lot, we eat quite, sumptuously. Sometimes the devotees have to, you have to learn how to, eventually you learn how to control yourself, because there's so much available that you can really go to, you can really go nuts. There's a lot of sensual engagements for us that actually give you some happiness and enjoyment, but they're elevating because they're in relationship with Krishna. We just conditioned to lower taste. That's all. But when in previous times, the difference was, the principle remains the same. It's just that the social structure was favorable. So the big gatherings of people were yagyas. The social interaction with people was surrounded by just religious activities. That was Varnashram Dharma will do that. So, everybody was engaged somehow or other, in all these elevating, social activities. Kali Yuga doesn't have that support, so that's what makes it all more difficult. But then that's what Prabhupada and our acharyas, Lord Chaitanya's desire is the gift that is giving us, the alternative. So we can do our social things, we can do our life in this world, this whole Yukta Vairagya thing, we can do it in relationship with Krishna, So we do have that enjoyment, It's just that whole principle of Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. We see it in relationship with Krishna, and then it becomes. So if we actually pay attention, we had a lot of sensual, happiness. A lot is inbuilt. It becomes a little austere when we're too contaminated. But, as we become purified, it's like, oh my God, just look at certain devotees who are quite purified. Like, comes to mind, just like ecstatic devotees, say, Mrs. Association, Dravida Prabhu. It's like a 60-something-year-old child, It's like, he's just careless. It's just so happy. And, it's contagious. It's happy. It's transcendental happiness. Or, say, Chandramauli Maharaj dancing. I mean, he just go nuts. And, or, you know, you name them, they're ecstatic devotees. They're really having a great time. And so like that. So the principles remains the same. We just have to become purified to be more conscious of the wonderful arrangement that is made for us. And, you know, we can be happy and have, you know, the things that we need as, you know, in the condition that we are, and then at the end of life, just go back home, back to Godhead. All right? Any other thing?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. You made a lot of nice points. I have a couple comments, or just one comment. I don't know how long it would be. Hopefully I'll shorten it. But some points that when I hear the three modes of material nature mentioned in this verse, it reminds me of my favorite pastime. I'd just like to mention some points that helps me out. One thing you were mentioning is we should come to a platform of the mode of goodness, at least. And one thing I try to keep in mind is that anyone can be good when everything's good, when everything's going your way, when everyone respects you. But my favorite pastime regarding this point with Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the Guna avatars, is that this pastime is meant to teach us essentially that how we can be good in not just favorable circumstances, but unfavorable circumstances. So Bhrigu Muni, he wanted to test them. He tested Brahma first by ignoring him. In the material world, when someone ignores you, become furious. So Brahma became furious. So then he was like, you're not in a goodness, because in all circumstances, then he insulted Shiva, and Shiva wanted to kill him. So when someone insults us, we also want to kill them. And so then he tested Vishnu by performing the greatest offense of them all. He kicked them. And Lord Vishnu started glorifying Bhrigu Muni. And so then he was like, yes, you're actually in goodness, because you're in goodness in all circumstances, favorable and unfavorable. So that's what I appreciate about that pastime. And but my really question related to your point today, and it reminds me of also what Radha Raman Prabhu said, is that one thing I try to keep in mind is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma's the creator, Shiva's Vishnu's the maintainer, and Shiva's the destroyer. And then I really realized that Vishnu has the hardest job, maintenance. So we see in the material world, this could be applied in all aspects. Creating a building, you could say it's easy. It takes maybe less than a year. Destroying a building, even easier. Maintaining a building, Ashtatendriya, that's hard. Creating a relationship, easy. Destroying a relationship, even easier. Maintaining a relationship. And you could say with our spiritual enthusiasm, when we come to the temple, easy. We become enthusiastic. Destroying it, somebody can insult us, it's destroyed. Maintaining it, that's the hard part. So my questions regarding this maintenance, you were mentioning Sharanagati, how to surrender to the Lord. And there's a verse that says, that Prabhupada quotes, I think in chapter 2, verse 41 of the Gita. You know that verse that says, Vyavasyamika Buddhir? Well, in that purport, he quotes a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that says, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudridanish Choi Krishna Bhakti Koila Savakama Krita Hoy. That one's advancement in faith all depends on that simply by performing Krishna Bhakti, that Sarva Karma Krita Hoy, all one's duties and activities are fulfilled. So my question is regarding this maintenance, maintaining our relationships. Now we may have faith in Krishna Bhakti, and Krishna Bhakti includes association of the gurus, Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru. So we may have faith in Krishna Bhakti, service to devotees, but we may not have complete faith in, let's say, not necessarily our Diksha Guru, but maybe our Shiksha Gurus. And that's fine, because Radha Maran Prabhu, he made a very nice point. He says, when I'm training pujaris, new pujaris, some pujaris learn the system of worshiping the Lord very quickly, and some don't. So in our material consciousness, it's very easy, like in material school, you could see at what level someone is. You just look at their grades. But when we're dealing with spirituality, you can't see people's consciousness. What is the grade of their consciousness? And we don't even know our own consciousness. What's to speak of other people's soul? So my question is how do we maintain our relationships with our association, our Shiksha gurus we've been given? We may not necessarily ask them, but by karma, we've been put in a certain situation. And sometimes we may not always be at a level that our Shiksha guru wants us to surrender to. And that's fine, but sometimes the tendency is that I may destroy my relationship with them. I may not maintain it. So how does one harmonize that dilemma someone may have with their authorities? So, Hare Krishna.
Maintaining and cultivating our relationship with our Shiksha gurus. And also the dilemma of having some difficulties by following authority, right? In one sense, we'll be talking with some devotees about this observation that one of the disadvantages that in the West people have is that we have an aversion in general for our authorities. And in one sense it's because a lot of the emphasis that is being given to us through education is independence, individuality. And this sort of mentality is even more acute in the newer generations. And there's more and more difficulty for to have someone either controlling, the idea of someone controlling yourself is, it doesn't sound great because you don't know, So some of us will start with that. We start with that, which makes it quite disadvantaged because our process is a process of accepting authority. The process of devotional service, the process of Krishna consciousness is that, accepting first the authority of Krishna and those who represent Krishna. So it's about surrendering. And that goes a little, against, quite against the whole concept that is, being taught, or indoctrinated in many of us in this part of the world. Indian culture has the advantage that, and some Eastern cultures had the advantage, but in India it's very clear, especially because we, it's a lot of the culture that we, learning is authority, the authority of elders, the authority of family, the teachers. This is supposed to be followed. So there's a greater emphasis in duty than in individuality. In other words, family is greater than the individuals of the family. So individually, you may want to go this way, but if the family is going this way, you're going with the family. There's a natural acceptance of that. That community and family is greater than the individual people, like that. In the West, it's the other thing. Individual is more important, family, second, society, community, third, like that, and so on. So it's a disadvantage that we have to work with. So how do you deal with that? Well, it's purification. We have to understand. First of all, we have to come to understand what our weaknesses are, what our problems are. So it becomes more clear where the problem is lying, then you can be more surgical in the removal. of the unwanted thing, the obstacle things. So it is an obstacle, it's a big obstacle for some of us to actually being able to follow authorities and to follow gurus, shiksha or diksha. You know, if we have this mentality that, you know, I cannot fully surrender. I have to keep a sense of control. I have to keep a sense of individual, you know, my independence. And as long as I maintain that independence and I'm not fully purified, then it's for sure we're going to make bad choices. So we're dependent on the guidance of our gurus and to learn the process, because we're learning a process. We're learning a complete foreign process. So we need the guidance. We need to accept that. We need to actually, the relationship between disciple and a spiritual master is pariprasnena sevaya. That we have to be submissive and we have to be engaged in service and inquiring with submission too. We have to inquire to understand. We have to do the pragmatic, practical thing. We have to serve. And we have to be submissive. So that's what that relationship is. And we have to cultivate, we have to practice. Purification will allow us to go further. So in general, our gurus, you know, in Krishna consciousness are very tuned in to, and with, you know, if they're bona fide, Krishna is perfectly tuned in. He knows everything. He's within your heart. Guru is a representative of Krishna. When the guru is bona fide, the disciple is faithful, have faith, then this mystical arrangement happens, that the guru communicates what is Krishna's message from within the heart. So we follow, and Krishna is very kind. He's our best well-wisher. So because he's very kind, then he will recommend something for you that you can handle. So the gradual process will happen with that guidance. We just have to have faith. So the question is, how do I maintain? Well, yeah, exactly. So in conclusion, how do you maintain is you have to, you know, have faith. It's like this mantra. Nishchaya, what is it? Utsaha, Nishchaya, what is it? Yeah. Utsaha, Nishchaya, Dharya. That we have to do it with enthusiasm, do it with patience, and have faith in the process. It's work. We're seeing it working, but it takes time. So I may not be fully surrendered now. You know, I mean, Yayati took it 1,000 years of having sensual enjoyment, along with his practices of yagya. You know, but like Giridhari said, he had, you know, those time people live whatever, you know, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, you know, like that. We don't have that much time, you know, so that's why, but the principle remains the same, you know. We engage in the process of purification, and, you know, we go further in the process of surrender. Yes. All right. I'm going to finish here. You know, it's time. Thank you so much. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Gaura Premanand. Prabhu. Taraknath Prabhu ki. I have the microphone.